Welcome to Power Platform Principles. My name is Daniel Halls. I am the Power Platform Consulting Lead at FSP, and I'm here today to do a part 2 video for you on dynamic questions in a Canvas app. So part 1, we went through, and if you haven't caught it yet, please do go across to the channel, take a look at it. It's going to give you the first part of what we're talking about today. And in that video, what we did is we looked at the way to add questions into a gallery, answer those from the gallery itself, and collect the answers inside the app itself, so we could do decision making based on the way you answer those questions. What we're going to do today is we're going to sort of finish that part off by adding in a secondary screen where the admin users, for example, can go into the app and add or remove questions as part of that dynamic questioning set. So making it truly sort of responsive to the end user, making sure they can control and change the questions that they want to whenever they want, rather than having to rely on either recoding or hard coding into the solution itself, or even relying on being in the SharePoint list behind the scenes itself. So you'll be able to go in and change those questions. So this is the sort of second part of that video. So before we get into that, if you like what we've got here, please like the video. If you want to follow along for more videos, or you want to check out the other video, please pop across to the channel, subscribe. And most importantly, if you get any comments about what I've done in the video, or you want me to answer things or help you along with other stuff, please comment them below and I will find time to get back to you as soon as we can. So let's jump straight across to the solution and into the settings page, so that we can start to create the way to add and remove those questions to the solution. So we're just going to, as I mentioned earlier, go over to our settings screen. That is where I'm going to do that part of the editing. And the reason for that is I can then be smart if I want to with my menu. So for example, I could hide the settings screen. My component is built in a way that actually I can use some logic to hide the bottom menu. So I could say settings is only visible if I'm an admin person. We could have another set of data that says who the admin users are. We could do it by email address and user groups and all sorts of stuff if we want to be clever with it. So I'm going to put this onto my settings screen for now. And so there's a couple of things that we want to be able to do. We want to be able to see all the questions that we've got currently. We want to be able to add a new one to it, and we want to be able to remove from the existing list as well. I'm going to go with a gallery to view them. So again, I like to start with a blank one. I'm going to connect it to my SharePoint data source, and then I'm going to position this on the page before we start to mess around with putting stuff in. So I would like to put this underneath my header component. So header component 3. So position wise, the X is going to be at 0. There's some padding on there that I need to get rid of as well in a moment. My Y position is going to be how far down it is, header.height. There we go. My width is app.width. My height is app.height minus component header.height. There we go. And that, like I said, the reason that's important is if we then, and I've got the container selected, not the gallery. There we go, there's the gallery fixed to where we need to. So I'd like to remove the padding. It's just my habit. 0, I find I can position stuff better if there's no padding. I can put it where I like. Template size is fixed to the width of the thing. So if I change the wrap count, we can have more than one, but I'm going to keep them for now, one item per row, simplicity's sake. Earlier on, we made the height 40. That's right, to rely on my template size, 40, that's the width. Now the gallery's position, we need to add some items in, so we can just add a text label, and it's going to give us the title by default, which is the column we're using for our question, and it's going to just place it somewhere near the beginning, as you can see. Because we don't know what the length of the question is going to be, someone could write a really long question out at this point in time. It's going to be dynamic. We don't want to be worried too much about it. I'm going to do a couple of things to just give us a bit more space to work with. So I'm going to position this text label at 0 right at the very beginning, and I'm going to make the width of it 3/4 of the gallery. So the gallery is the parent, so parent.width. Another used one, a little bit like self. Parent is another good formula to use. Whatever the parent of this item is, let's work off of that rather than having to name everything in detail. We're going to divide it by 4. Oh, not 34, 4. So that's going to give us 1/4, and then we're going to times it by 3. Simple maths, but 3 doesn't work. There we go. So we've got 3/4 of our screen is going to be taken up with our question. The last quarter I'm going to use for the area where we can actually delete the record itself out. So let's center the text, just because. Now we could put some headers in here, if there was lots of information, although because there's not lots of information, I'm not going to worry too much about it today, but we could put a bit of space in above it, put some headers in, and so on. But let's keep it simple. KISS. And then let's add another label. Again, place it at the beginning, gives you what it thinks you need in terms of the column. We're not going to use a column for this one at all. This is going to be the text delete item. Now I like to do kind of like a delete item, press the button, and then an are you sure, and then it will give you the option to actually delete it or not delete it as you see fit. So I quite like that approach. We're going to stick with that today in how I configure the deleting part of this. Center that text. So we want this to be positioned just after this label. So we're going to say, and you would name them properly, obviously, but for speed, it's just called label 8. So we're going to go in here, and the position of this is going to be label 8.width, because it's going to always be after the width of that. There's other things around positioning that you would need to think about if you're doing positioning properly. We're not covering that in the session today. So if we do responsive design as a video later on, I'll talk to you things about, like, if you've got to position an item halfway down the page and then after that, and so on. We're not worried about it today. It's not part of this video. So we'll just get our width in place that says we want parent.width. And we could do minus the label width, or we can also do divide by 4, because we know it's 1/4. That's what we did a moment ago. So there's my delete item. So the importance of all that positioning means that when we press play and our screen size gets much bigger, they're pinned in the right place than where we need them. So that's that. Next up, we need an icon. So we're going to go insert icon. I'm just going to go for the trash can, because it's obviously it's Microsoft, it's American. The bin, whichever you prefer to call it, icon. And I like the icon to be the clickable thing rather than the word. So we're just going to make sure it's just the icon that's going to do all the logic. I'm going to make it the same size. I'm going to add some padding, because there is a bugbear of mine in clunky big icons. Some people like them, some people don't. I prefer nice, neat and tidy ones. Now it might look a little tiny on this screen, but when we press play, I haven't positioned it. Again, dynamic positioning. That's what happens if it's not rendered dynamically. That's probably not a bad size for a delete icon. Anyway, your design, your choice. Let's position that where it should be. So there's a few things we can do with this. I'm going to say that I want to position the X. So for example, we could just do parent.width minus self.width. So it's going to basically say, oh goodness me, my typing went out the window there, didn't it? Self.width. And parent.width, self.width, or it could be app.width minus self.width. Basically means be all the way at the very end. So if I press play, it's affixed right to the very end, like so. That might be a bit too bunched up for you. You might want to bring it in a little bit more. What I tend to do is I do ×2. And it brings it in a little bit further. And that's my delete icon. So that's my delete. What I then need to be able to do is I need to be able to say, are you sure? That's my next part of this. So I'm going to now work with some variables. The first thing we want to do is we want the variable that's going to control whether you're deleting item. And the way to set this is on our trash can in the onSelect property. There's that select parent we spoke about earlier. Gives you it by default in the gallery for most items. So we leave that in place because we want to make sure that the item we're talking about is the one we've selected. And then we're going to go set var delete, and again, simplicity, that'll do us, to true. And then what we want to do is we want to think about, okay, well, what do we need to do? So when that's true, when we are saying, are you sure, we need to have another set of icons visible, don't we? So I'm a stickler for copy and paste. So if I copy and paste my trash can, it will sit itself on top of it. And then what we can do, because we've copied and pasted, this is where the shortcuts come in. We're going to change the icon. And we're going to change the icon to cancel. And I like the cancel badge. It's just, I like it now. So we're going to put the cancel badge in. And now we've got this horrible blurred mess on top of each other because we've got one visible, both visible at the same time, and we only want one visible. So we need to think about how we show and hide the ones that we want to show and hide. So we know we've got this variable var delete. So we're going to use that. So we're going to say to our cancel icon, you only need to be visible. Click the name, put it in the formula bar. You only need to be visible if var delete is true. And that, by the way, statement is true. I have seen people, and it's fine because it works. It's just a lot more typing, and I like to not type a lot. You could write if var delete equals true. It's a lot more typing, I told you that. True, false. Right, that would work, and obviously I have to delete that out, and it would give me the same result. But as I said, it's a lot more typing. So let's just stick with the simples. That's true, and if you want false, put an exclamation mark in the middle. Call that top tip of the day. True, false. Easy peasy, right? So we've done that for our cancel icon. We now need to hide the trash can with the reverse of that. So again, the exclamation mark, var delete, and that will be visible because var delete is false. So what will happen now is if I press the bin, it will disappear and the cancel icon will appear, like so. The last thing I nearly forgot is I need to update the onSelect of my cancel to say set var delete to false, like so. So now what we should be able to do is we should be able to go to the bin, cancel, bin, cancel, bin, cancel. There is one more thing I like to do, okay, and that is make sure that you can only delete the one you've got selected. So, and in fact, I will go through that in just a moment. Let me finish up putting the formatting in for this, and then we'll tidy that last. So the next thing I'm going to do, again, stickler for copy and paste. I'm going to copy and paste my X because that is the right, it's visible at the right time. And I'm going to go to my cancel badge, and I want a tick. Okay, and again, I like the circle filled one. So there's my tick. It's in the wrong place though. So I'm going to position this slightly different. And we want to position this basically at the beginning of this, but in a little bit. So this is label 9. Okay, and we're going to say to this, we want to start off, let's get rid of that. We're going to start off at label 9's X position, because that's where we want to start, but then we want to go forward by self.width. Typing today is not working for me. There we go, self.width. There we go, so it's the same distance between the delete item text, and there we go. So we've got my tick, my cross. So if I press any of those, it will go back to the bin. Nothing else will happen. We haven't hooked up the tick. We also still have this delete item in there, and I like to change the wording. Now, because of what I'm going to do in a moment around showing and hiding stuff for the particular item that we're on, I'm actually going to add another label on top of itself. So same as we've done with the icons, I'm going to copy and paste the text label that says delete item. I'm going to change the wording to are you sure? question mark, and we'll get this horrible clash of text, and we're going to set the visible rules. So we want the visible rule for are you sure to be visible if var delete is true, and that is var delete true, and it is at the moment, so they're both visible. And then I'm going to send that out the way to the back. Then I'm going to click my one that says delete item, and I'm going to say to the visible property false var delete, so the opposite. So if it's there, and it goes away. So what we should now get is if we press the button, boop, it goes to delete item. If we press it again, boop, there we go. And that's my button noise. Boop. So there's our delete items set up for you. But the last thing that I would do here is there's a bit of, there would potentially be a bit of a, not necessarily, but to me, that doesn't look clean. It's like, oh, you can now go, oh, are you sure? And you could accidentally delete the complete wrong one. So we can make it really obvious. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to hide the are you sure and the yes, no for if the item that you've got is not selected. So let's take our two icons and our text box, and we're going to go to the visible rule, and we're going to add, okay? And we're going to also, so we're going to say that's got to be true, but also, and it's got to be this item dot is selected. Does all the work for you. So there we go. So that is the additional rule to that. So now that you can see is the are you sure visible is only for fish, because that's the one I've got. And there's lots of other things you could do as well. You could do, grey out backgrounds and hover overs and all sorts of stuff like that. But we're going to stop there for the sake of time. And we're going to say, so when I say no, and I go down, actually I want to delete dairy, you see it goes, are you sure for dairy? So it's just a nicer interface, and nothing happens at the moment. So the last thing we need to do to remove these items is add in a delete rule on this when you get to the tick box. Once we've got our icon selected, we can then add the formula to remove the current item. And I'm going to put it in the middle of the two because I like to run it in chronological order. Select the item that we've got, remove it, and then reset the variable. So semicolon in there, and then we're going to use the remove function. There it is. And just close the brackets off so you can see where we are. There we go. So what it says is we have to remove collection. So the collection, actually the collection in this argument isn't a collection in the traditional sense. It's the actual data source, and our data source is called questions. So we're going to go remove questions, and there we go. There's questions, comma, and then the item is really quite straightforward. It's this item, and that's it. Simple as that. And if you want to see it in a slightly neater way, so remove questions, this item, then set var delete to false. Job done. So let's give that a test. Let's remove fish from the list, and that will run off to my data source and remove the item for you there. There we go. Easy peasy. So I could delete them all if I want to, but now what I need to do, I need to be able to add them back in. The other thing to check at this point as well is if I go back up to my new screen, you can see my questions are updated. Yeah, so I can only answer the ones that are there, and that gallery that I had behind the scenes will only be answering wheat and dairy. So now we need to add items back in. So there's a few different ways of doing this. I'm going to just, for simplicity's sake, use a form like so. We're going to connect this to our data source questions. It will give me some handy fields. We're going to just move that down so you can see it. So title is actually currently the field I'm using for question because I was a little bit lazy and I just reused the column that was available. Obviously that would be named something nicer like question or your question here or whatever it might be. We don't need the attachments. We're going to just delete that out. We don't use that. It's just a default thing that comes in. So I'm going to do this just so that it appears over the top of my gallery So the first thing I want to do is I want to basically make the gallery hide. Now I could hide the gallery, but I'm not. I'm going to just cover it because it's only momentarily. It's only while we're using this form. So the easiest way to do that is to go fill, and actually there's a smart way of doing fill. I'm going to do setting screen dot fill. So if I change the screen fill later on, it fills it in properly. If I move that over the top now of anything, it will start to hide it. So if I position this, as I've done with everything else so far, under the header, so there's 0. Let's take my Y position and go header component 3 dot height. Oh, I keep doing that one though, don't I? Height, those that have been paying attention. Width, height, like so. So that's now covered up my gallery. So now my form's in place. We want to start putting the buttons in place to control how this works. So let's insert a label. We want to position this somewhere nicely here. Again, I need to dynamically position this really to make it work. So I've got this component here. So I can take that and I can use that as my benchmark for this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the X position is going to be that dot width. So it starts after that. The Y position is going to be that dot Y. So we can literally just copy. And the width of that, let's make it the same just for the simplicity's sake. I'm going to say that's going to be my catchphrase, isn't it, at the moment, simplicity's sake, like that. But obviously there's lots of things that we're trying to actually cover off in here. Padding left, we're probably just going to say that's probably about 50. That's guesswork. As you can see, it's about the same. Text on this might be add new question. Ooh. There we go. And we need to put ourselves an icon in place to make it look nice. Let's go to insert icon and let's just do the simple add icon. So we want that somewhere here, don't we? So again, let's position this. Now we're going to position off of this label. And positioning is one of those things that once you get in the habit of doing it this way, you find it very difficult to do it any other way. But it saves you a whole bunch of time down the road and also gives you access to things like responsive design. Oh no, that's width. Like that, and then height is that one, but that puts the button in the middle. So now we need to do some padding. So we need to make sure that we pad it from the right hand side by self.width minus self.height. It's a formula that I like. That, and that puts it over in that corner. But what we can also do is if we just give ourselves a little breathing room from the left, and let's just put 10. It might be too much, but that will do. You get the point. We have an add question button. So what we've got here is we've got this add question. We're also going to we can group this. Let's just group that together because I'm going to copy it in a minute, so that will make it easier to copy. And let's call this new question, new Q icon. I'll do. So because we're going to copy that in a moment. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go to the on select value. And we're going to say to the on select value, set var new question. And we're going to set that to true. Oh, close bracket. You can't close bracket. There we go. Set that to true. So we're going to do some similar things that we did a moment ago in our gallery. We want to get this to a point where we can use the variable to show and hide the form. We're going to use the variable to load the button to load a new form as well. So the other thing we need to do now is we need to do when you press that, we're going to want a new form 2, and that's it. So that's that set up correctly. So this button and that form need to only be visible under certain circumstances. This button needs to be visible when that is false. So if we take our group and we say to the visible rules of those, be visible when that is false, sorry, exclamation mark at the beginning for false, as I said a moment ago. And we're going to say to the form, be visible when that's true. There we are. That's the first part of that. And now what we need to do is let's duplicate this group, copy paste, and we can do a few things with this one as well. Now, I again would typically like to do this as a similar sort of principle here. Are you sure, and all the rest of it, but I'm going to just skip to the part where that is just a save button for now. So we're going to make that submit form. So this again becomes a little bit easier by copying and pasting. Now we've done a bit of the legwork. So this is going to be submit form. And then actually what I like to do here is take this variable off of the success button. Let me just cut that out. Oh, and I need to change the text. I'll come back to that in a moment. So we'll cut that variable out and we'll come back to it. And let's just change that to save question, like so. So now we've got this blurb on top of each other. Set the visible rules of these to true. There we go, so they've disappeared. And so we've got to press the add new question, boom, and then we've got save question. Oh, and I can change the icon. The icon, click again. The icon should be the age-old floppy disk. It doesn't have to be. I find it hilarious that we use the floppy disk for save, even though I can't remember the last time I used a floppy disk, and there's probably a whole bunch of people online that have never used them at all in their life. Right, so plug my computer in. So that brings up our form. The bit I needed to come back to was the how do you hide it again when you're done? Well, I don't like that to be on the button when I'm doing a form. I actually like that to be on the on success property. And we're going to set that to false, like so. And the reason I do that is because if this doesn't submit, if the form doesn't submit for any reason, and then, okay, it's not so much of a problem on a form that is one field long and is only a few bits of text. But let's say, for argument's sake, it was a whole form of 20, 30 questions, and somebody filled it all in, they pressed submit and it failed, but you hid the form away. The next time they click the button, the form will reset and all of their credentials will be gone and lost, and they'll have to fill it in again. Now, that's not a very nice user experience. If you move the hide form away to the on success property, it will only hide it when the form is submitted successfully. So that's all we're going to do there. The last thing we're going to do is just fit this out to the width, and we are done. So let's unlock that, and we go to the width. We're going to go app.width. Okay. Oh, there should be a dot in the middle of there, like so. And title could be a nicer bit of text, couldn't it? It could be I really don't. Type your question below. There we go. That will do. I will start to overthink otherwise. Okay, so what we need to do now, let's press play. Top right hand corner, everything is positioned where it should do. We should also put cancel in. We should think about nice stuff like that, but we're going to finish up here on that point. I haven't done any theme coloring or anything like that either. So let's just do, I can't remember what I deleted now. I think it was fish. Well, let's just do, I'm going to do one, actually, let's do nuts, because these are our allergies, remember. Save question. Little marching ants across the top, and we've got wheat, dairy, nuts. It was fish. So if I want to add fish in, you can tell we're near the end. Fish. There we go. So now we've got 4 items on there. And that's just a really nice way of doing it. We can put another one on there. And let's say we did that and we put that in and we said, oh, there we go. There's all of our questions. Actually, I don't like that one. Delete. Are you sure? Yes, I am. We can nip back across to our new screen And you can see that there we now have 4 different items on there that we can toggle to answer. So we can say yes, 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 yes. If I just close the preview and bring our gallery back into play for 30 seconds that I put in place to show you a moment ago, you can now see that the answers are being saved into the gallery. And if I now go in here and actually change the answers and go to wheat, it goes to false, it just changes the answer. It doesn't add another one to the end of it. So we've got these logical decisions in here that we can now use in our application from the collection, but also because they're saved, that can dynamically grow. We don't have to worry about stuff being in a gallery. We can use the answers in our collection, and we can also patch this information back off somewhere to save if somebody wanted to later on. So there we go. Using the 2 videos that I put together, the part 1 and part 2 on responsive questions, you would now be able to create questions in a gallery control that can be answered by the end user, that can be updated and changed by, say, an admin user in the app itself as well. So there's no needing to go and change data sources, add new columns, create new questions, update apps, or anything like that. You can change the wording, tweak the questions, tweak the answers, tweak the responses that you want people to have, and work with that information with the app to make decisions on how you then progress through to other screens, and that sort of thing as well. So I hope you like the video and like what I've put together. Please check out the first video if you haven't seen it. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see future stuff that we're going to do. Any questions, any comments, please leave them below, and I will do my best to answer those as soon as possible, whether it be you want some help and advice on implementing it yourself, or you've got other questions around Power Platform at all, then please feel free to put them below, and who knows, your questions may turn into future videos as well. So thank you very much. I've been Daniel Halls. This has been Power Platform Principles. We'll see you again soon.